Hello and welcome, Success Secret Nation, to this episode of the Success Secret podcast with your host Hussein Talib. In this episode, with my guest Richard Walsh, we are going to be talking about strategic vision and how it will transform your company. Richard is a 30-year seasoned entrepreneur. He is the best-selling author of Escape the Owner Prison, The Contractors, A New Way to Scale, Regain Control, and Fast Track Growth While Loving Life, a speaker and a podcast host. He is a husband and the father of 6 children, a U.S. Marine, champion boxer, black belt, and internationally recognized steel sculptor. Well, this is a lot of different things in different areas. I would love to know more about these type of things. So, because I want to know these kind of details, you sculpt statues or steel, let's say specifically steel, and you have a black belt, which is, I think, in different things other than being a champion of boxing. So these a lot of things in different areas. So can you give us first of all a glimpse, an overview of who you are?
You bet. Thanks, Hussein. Again, I love being on here. I appreciate it. Yes, it's varied because I like to keep moving forward. I like challenges. I've kind of always been that way. I like hard things. So, was an athlete in high school, went into the Marine Corps. That was kind of tough. Did all that, got out of that, started boxing, became a champion boxer. Then I did Taekwondo, got into martial arts after that, which wasn't as good as boxing. It felt like I was playing tag, so it wasn't wasn't quite as fun when you're actually trying to make someone unconscious boxing. From there, yes, I of course at the same time I'm growing my first business. I built custom water features. So you can imagine water gardens, ponds, waterfalls, streams, all that kind of stuff. I built that. And at that same time, I'm like, well, I started looking into sculpture, steel sculpture, because I would weld frames and do things. And I just started teaching myself and I started creating these massive things that I sold along with my water features. So my claim, I always tell people, well, I was never a starving artist. I actually sold what I made. So for me, that was an advantage. I'm like, well, I'm an entrepreneur too, so why am I going to make things that no one wants to buy? So I'm going to make some really cool stuff. And I did really well with that. I started getting commissions from like the Shed Aquarium in Chicago, the Garfield Park Conservatory, huge permanent exhibits, just massive stuff, really awesome. So that kind of launched me in that as well with my first business. Did that for about 20 years. But that ability to adapt to new things for me, Hussein, was a really part of who I am. And not because I get bored with things, but because I need another challenge. I don't mean I jump from business to business, but for myself personally, I'd love to be challenged. I love to work out. I work out hard still. I'm a lot older now. I can still rock the heavy bag, and I do it, 3 days a week. I lift. I'm doing very, very hard workouts. I'm a little nutty in the gym. So the good news is no one talks to me while I'm working out. So I'm a little nutty, but I love getting into hard workouts. It just starts my day and it's awesome. I have 6 kids, so they're all in their teens now, and they're my oldest is in the Marine Corps now. But my other kids, so they're not as much work as they used to be. They're all working now and stuff like that. So, I have to get that energy out somehow. So I do that. And now I coach businesses naturally. And we'll talk about that shortly. But it's been in 08, 09, I did lose everything. So I had to start completely over the big financial crash. When I thought I had a strong business of almost 20 years, and I realized it's a lot of the little things in business. Okay. And I tell people this, and some people think I'm nuts, but I go, making money is the easiest part of having a business. Anyone can make money. You can make money and you can make lots of money and you can do all that. It's all the other things that you have to do to make a successful business. And a lot of those I tell people I kind of pushed to the left side of my desk, ignored it because I was making money. I was building cool things. I'm an artist who got to do his art every day, and get paid very well for it. But then 08 hit, and then you find all the holes in your bucket, the chinks in your armor, and it took me out. Everything collapsed. I had a luxury item I was selling. No one wanted to spend any money. I literally lost $500,000 in a day. People canceling contracts and everything else. So that was the start of the end. Lost my house, lost everything. I went, wow. Took my 6 little kids. I had 6 kids under 4. My wife had to relocate and figure out, again, I'm a competitor. I don't like to lose. this was a pretty big loss. This was a big hit. So starting from scratch again was a little rough. But what I didn't want to do, Hussein, was make the same mistakes. So I started connecting dots like, okay, what did I do wrong? What did I skip? How does this happen? And there's a lot of dots to connect. But I connected them and started my next business. And the other thing on that a big takeaway I got, Hussein, was my kids were very small. I worked a lot, 14, 16 hours a day. I just loved it, but I did it because I had to. I was wearing a lot of the hats of the business. And then I realized one morning, and this was in late 08, early 09, my children didn't care what I did. They didn't care what I drove. They didn't care what kind of house we lived in. All they wanted was to be around me. They'd attack me when I get home. Sometimes they'd even run down the driveway crying after my truck, days like that. I'm like, well, I started to realize, well, if I continue down this path, all they're going to know is that business comes first.
Mhm.
Okay. And that was going to ruin them. Okay. It was going to ruin relationships, it's going to ruin everything about their life because all they do is work. And they would be successful from a business standpoint, but the rest of their life would be in shambles.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be around for my kids. Now, I want to have a successful business. I love business. I love to work. But how do I balance? So again, that was part of the dots I had to connect.
So speaking of family and business and success, so after your experiences and that point in your life, how would you define success now, and what do you see other people define success as, and the certain misconceptions you see around the success of definition of success?
Yeah, mine is I kind of this little thing. It's called the 5 F's. It's faith, family, finances, fitness, and friendships. Okay, so outside of business, you need those 5 things to be in, but you need to have those 5 things thriving. Okay, whatever it is to you, those are important because that's everything you miss by focusing just on business. Now, business success is going to be, to me, do I have those 5 things in order? Can I do that and drive my business? I think a big misconception for a lot of people, Hussein, is they go by gross revenue. Oh, I'm making $10 million a year. I'm making $100 million a year. And I look at it, I've worked with so many businesses, right? And I'm going to share a great quote I learned years ago from a mentor of mine. But I have one guy, he's making $10 million a year, but he's not even taking home 100,000 a year. I said, well, that number doesn't work for me. Like, you're doing all this. So they get impressed by this gross revenue number, but they're not looking at what they take home. So the great quote was, revenue feeds the ego, profit feeds the family. Okay. And you start to think that way, because I talk a lot about real net profit. I'm like, what are you keeping? What are you taking? What are you able to reinvest? What kind of legacy are you building financially for your family? Forget about that. Because I can make 5 million and be making 10, 12 times more than you are at 10 million. I said, that's what it's about. That's what the success is, in profit, in what you can do with it. And then it's the assets you're building with that profit, right? It's the passive income you're going to create. So eventually you can step away, right? As your business runs itself. That's what we want to do. So that's where I measure success. I don't care how much they're making a year. I know guys that are making $1 million a year gross revenue, and they're taking home 500,000. That's a good business, a really good business, right? Because they're paying attention to the little stuff that all adds up.
Yeah.
So that's how I define it.
Yeah, definitely. Profit as a business, profit is the end number of all things at the end of the year, let's say, or the end of the month. So this is what we get to keep in our pockets, which is the important thing. I don't care if I am making $1 billion and I'm keeping 10,000. So that does not.
Exactly.
I don't care if about the revenue total. I care about the profit total. So this is very important. So you talked about in business, it's easy to make money, but what makes businesses, okay, not looking or focusing on the end or the profits and making them lose money or not make money in business? What are the things that are focusing on that are not making real profits, let's say?
A lot of times they're moving too fast. They're selling without understanding their margins. So they're just, hey, I'll get work. A lot of guys, and whether it's the construction industry, a service industry, a financial industry, whatever it might be, they get in this weird cycle. It's the, robbing from Peter to pay Paul, which means the next job is paying for the last job because they're moving so quickly. Give me the money that they spend, and they're not managing this income that's coming in, right? So they mismanage the money, whether it's purchasing materials, ordering, what expenses, all of those issues. They're not focused on that. They're focused on the next job. So they think, hey, I just got another $10,000 job. I got another $50,000 job. But meanwhile, the last $30,000 job they get cost them $29,000 to do.
Mm.
Okay, so now they got to take that money and they got to pay to make payroll, and it's that vicious cycle. What happens, Hussein, is a lot of guys get going in the first 2 years. We've all been there. If you started the business, you work a ton of hours, you hustle, you do it because you have to, and you're making money, and you get going, but you're also doing everything in the business because you need to keep as much as you possibly can because you're just starting to scale a little bit. But the problem is they get stuck in that 2-year cycle. So now they've been in business 10 years and they're repeating the first 2 years 5 times. So they haven't really grown. They're kind of in that little circle. So there's no ability to scale. That's why they can't make money, because they haven't put delegation in place. They haven't built systems to run their business. They haven't what we call automate, delegate, or eliminate. Those 3 things. You got to automate whatever you can. You have to delegate the rest, and then you have to eliminate the stuff you don't need. That's how you're going to start seeing more money in your company.
So
Stuff like that.
yeah, so this is very important. You mentioned the things that you think that are not important, you need to remove them completely from what you are doing. And you need to also delegate and have people help you with certain things that you can. Not being perfectionist is good. So,
Yeah.
see, right? So you have to do that. So this, I think, would tie to having a strategic vision for the business.
Mhm.
Because if we are operating in the mindset of, like you mentioned there, the first 2 years only doing everything ourselves, only looking at the profit at the end of the day, or getting paid to pay someone else, which is this, let's say, vicious cycle of repeating things over and over without actually looking ahead to 2 years or 5 years in advance. So, what, let's say, the strategic vision involve? It's good to have a strategic, I would say, and strategy, tactics, and strategy. So, these 2 things, I think they are important, right? But we are going to dive deeper into the longer term of things of business, right?
Right. So strategic vision, and it's not what a lot of people think. A lot of guys, whether they're founders or they're CEOs, and they call themselves visionaries, and they have this great idea about what their company's going to be, right? And we all have that. You need that, right? That's kind of motivation. They have this idea, I'm going to change the world, or I'm going to sell this, or I'm going to bring this here, and that's all good. But the problem is they stop there and they're just daydreamers. Then they kind of do business, but they don't really have a path. Strategic vision, well, what that becomes is you understand who you serve, you understand how you serve them, and you understand why you serve them, right? So that's where it starts. Who is your ideal customer? And then it goes to how do we serve our ideal customer at the highest level? And then the third one is why do we do it? Like, why do we do this? Is it because I'm making money? Because if you're just making money, there's no purpose and drive there. So strategic vision gets laid out, and you actually write this out. What I do with my owners is we actually build this out. We write a customer journey. Okay, so we start from the very first call a customer inquires, and what does that look like inside the company? How does it progress? What does it do? Who's there? What's their role? What's the actual outcome of what they do? Right. So we build it out, and you see it's in part story form. So you have examples of what would happen. And John was hired to do this, and John came from here and did that. But what that does, and actually what I do, and it can be 6 to 10 pages, 12 pages long. And my owners will do that. Then they roll it out and they share it with the entire team. So I call it an internal document. So this isn't for marketing. This is for the people who are on your team or who you might hire. So if I get a potential hire, they're going to read this first before I even talk to them. Then I said, did you read the strategic vision? Yes. Well, where do you see yourself fitting in? Because every position's in there, and how it performs and why it's critical for the company to have that position and why you matter. Right. So what it does is it changes the mindset of everyone who's working there. It gives them a purpose for that complete outcome. And the outcome isn't, well, we got a request to make this and we made that. Okay, that's not the journey. It's the whole experience from the very beginning, all the through what it means to that person who gets that product or service. It's not just they got a new chair. It's more than that. What does that mean? I can sit here and hold my grandson. I can do this. I can do that, right? It's this bigger picture. And once the team understands the full vision, everybody's working towards fulfilling that vision all the time. So what we do is called future casting, Hussein. So it's not what we're doing right now. It's what I'm going to be doing in 18 to 24 months. So I want to put in there like, this is what we're going to do. Everyone reads it. Wow, that's great. Now let's get working towards that. What does that look like in each department? We do strategic goal setting. We lay it all out. So within 18 to 24 months, we've achieved that. Then we can fine tune it again, go to the next level. So now when anyone works on the team, again, they have purpose. They understand why they're doing this. They understand what the company means, who it is, who runs the company. Everything is laid out in this. So it's a very different approach than, say, a mission statement. People make a mission statement, they'll hang it on the wall. We're going to be the best, blah, blah, blah. It's like wallpaper. People read it once and they walk by and they never see it again, right? They don't even recognize it. So we want to bring this back in meetings. When someone's let go because they're not performing, it's because they're not fulfilling the strategic vision. It's not because they're a bad employee, something like that. The real reason you're not fulfilling our vision, so you can't be on the team, right? It's very simple, but it's a great way to gauge things. So I'm giving kind of the high level view, but when you build something like that and the entire company runs on that, changes everything. And I'll tell you from, again, working with tons of companies doing this, when they roll it out to their people, it's moving. Like I had one just last week, like a couple, they start crying about, people are moved by it because it's like you're like honoring them, you're showing them that you have a critical role no matter how big or small. Without you, this vision doesn't happen. But they understand the vision. The vision is way bigger than what a normal company vision would be. You have purpose, you have charity, you have all these things that's laid out that it's going to do. And it changes the entire culture of the business. Because you'll hear a lot about business culture, right? They kind of got a kind of a, kind of catchy little thing. Everyone talks about good business culture, but no one really defines it. That's what kills me. They all talk about great business culture, like, well, what the heck does that mean? Like give me some meat, put some meat on that bone. So we build it out and people know what it means. And that culture is what we're looking for. So when we want to bring in a new hire, they have to fit the culture, right? They have to understand, to find themselves where they're in that strategic vision. And there's people who have called, they've read it and called, I'm not a fit. I'm not going to work there because of what they do. And what a great filter, for people who have enough self-awareness to go, yeah, I'm not working at that company. Well, good. Go find your fit somewhere. That's okay. That's why we do it. So people really understand where they're coming to work. Otherwise, they're going to come and in a month they're going to quit. And, no one wants that. We want our people to stay. We want them to love what they do. They want great quality feedback because money, who's saying, again, we go back to the money thing, pay, like how much they make is like third on the list. It's not the number one thing people want. People think that's what it is, but when you talk to them, that's not what they want, right? What they want is they want to be heard. They want quality feedback for what they're doing. Am I doing well? Praise, things like that. They want that for sure. They want to know that they have a purpose. Are they making a difference? They want to know that. Then they want the money. I'm not saying they don't want money. I'm just saying like they're not going to leave a well-run company with a good strategic vision, not going to lose someone for 50 cents an hour or $1 an hour. They're not going to leave for that because they're not going to go into the unknown or some other company that has no vision. They're not going to go work for that company.
Yeah. That's very important. Yeah, that's very, like, to me now, the strategic vision like involve two things: the customer journey and also the people that are coming to this company and work for it. Because when someone comes to a company, like, I don't think like someone would want to keep jump from job to another job if the place that they are working in is fine and the pay is fine, and as you mentioned, the money is the third thing and things that people think about. It's not the main thing, it's the people around them and the culture of the business. And they would think like, if this business was sold to someone else, would I stay, for example? So these kind of things that occur in the minds of people. So how do we make sure that, but eventually the things that I always say, uh, employees in a business or a company, no matter how much the situation is good, it is still not their business. So
Right.
right? So how do we reach a point with the employee to really sincerely have, like, let's say, a real genuine care for the business? What do you
Here's
think
how
would make that?
here's how you do it. I'll tell you exactly how you do it. Okay. So in every position, what I have my clients do is we build levels. Okay. So there's like 3 to 4 levels inside a job position. Okay. So first their position is built out. It's called job functions. They know exactly what they're to do. They know how to do it. There's training built for that position. So they have boundaries, right? They don't have to figure it out. They can operate that way. But inside there, they start at level 0. They just got hired. And then we have requirements. It's both time and qualification. So maybe it could be 3 weeks at level 0. Are you going to say your probationary period? Maybe it's 3 months. And you do a couple of things. You lay out the things they need to have, right, to be competent in. Now they go to level 1. At level 1, they may get a pay raise. It may be 25 cents an hour, maybe $1 an hour, depends on what is required, right? Now another time clock starts and more qualifications. But we're doing 2 things in those levels, Hussein, not just making them better doing what they do in the job, making them more competent, making them better as people. Okay, we're giving them additional skills that they can take, again, make them better people, or things that they can have for the rest of their life. If they do leave, they take those skills with them. So let's say they stayed there 2 years, they got to level 3 in their position. Now they've learned everything from CPR training to all their tasks they do there. They've got additional education, learned some new certifications. Now they can go to another company, and now look what they're bringing. They're not that level 0 anymore. Now they're a higher potential hire for another company. And my thinking is everybody leaves. Okay, as a business owner, you need to get a hold of everybody's going to leave. I don't care if it's 5 months or 5 years or 20 years, they're going to leave. Okay, I need to just know that and accept that. But my thought is, how about we make them the best people they can be, the best employees that team members can be, but really make them great people for a couple of reasons. One is, if they do go to another company, think of the other owner. He's another owner like me. He's going to go, dang, they trained you up great. Like, man, why'd you even leave? That's because like they'll be grateful, right? So we want good people in the marketplace. The hardest thing we all deal with is good people in the marketplace to work for us, right? But the other thing is, as you build them up as people and make them better, they love what they do. Where does that go? That goes home every day, right? That transfers into their family. They love what they do. They come home, they're happier. They spend time with their kids. They're becoming better people. And then where does it go from there? It goes into the community. Right now, you took those people that are working for you, they went home, helped their families of 3, 5, 7 people, and now they went to the community. So my big goal, if I want to help 10,000 business owners do this, I can affect millions of people, right? And just change. It's such a big, just such a big thing to do outside just a business making money. Changing people's lives and give them a place they like to go to work. So, and that's all part of strategic vision. And those levels, as they're able to grow, like say they get to level 4, now they're eligible for a promotion. They can go to a different position, right? But now they're the top in their position. They're making more money. They've got all these additional skills, and that might be a 2 or 3 year period. But then they can advance in the company from there. So you actually build a path. And when they get hired, they have this all in writing. And now they go, oh, I started here and in 3 months and 6 months. And they literally know where they're going to go in the job. It's not, yeah, we'll talk about money later. Talk about a raise later. Oh, you got to come to me. It's like on the paper, right? So it's very clear. When you make a path clear for someone, they're willing to travel it. When the path is unknown, don't expect much from people.
Yes, I can see that in a lot of places, a lot of wrong decisions here and there. So, what was, let's say, the worst advice that you have ever received?
Wow, the worst. Ooh. Uh, I think that's a good question. I think in the beginning, the worst advice was like, so I'm coming out of the Marine Corps, right? We're pretty rigid. Like we get things done regardless. And I had that mindset and it worked for me, but it transferred over into, it doesn't work in with civilians. Okay. It just, and I really thought I should, because I just figured it'd be great, but they don't really like that. So no, you just do it. They have to do what you tell them. That was my worst advice. Just do it. You're the boss. They have to do what you tell them. That was probably the worst advice I ever got. Okay. Because, and the reason why is not that they don't have to do what I ask, because they do, but it's how you ask, right? And then it became more than how you ask. It's just like I was saying, you can't just tell them, then they have to do one thing, then you tell them the next thing to do, and you tell them the next thing. Because then what happens? You're stuck telling them all the time. If I don't show up, they don't know what to do. And they just sit and look at the wall, right? So that was some pretty bad advice, because that just, you can't play king. Okay, you can't be, I'm not saying be everyone's buddy and all that kind of stuff, because leadership is a very complicated thing. But you have to both be encouraging, you have to understand who you're talking to, but even more so, you have to have the path laid out for them in the business. If you don't have that, every day's a mystery. No one wants to work somewhere like that. No one wants to figure it out. They might be great at what they do. You might bring in a really, really A player, but everything in the office is a hot mess, and they didn't get hired to figure that out and make systems. They came to work and do what they do. If you don't enable them to do that, if you don't have that in place, you can't get great people. So
Yeah.
that's a long story on the worst advice.
I would say leadership, for example, is the ability to make decisions and take responsibility even if they are wrong decisions.
Right.
So that's one of the important things in that, I guess. So what would you say some of the tools, resources, or books that you would recommend to people?
Well, wait, look, I have it right here. This is Escape the Owner Prison. That's my book, best-selling book. But yeah, that's a good book. I'll tell you another one if you want to know, and I just finished this actually. It's a really great book. It's called Grit by Angela Duckworth. I don't know if you've read it. Incredible research. I mean, it's 300 pages, but it's research on why entrepreneurs are successful. Because everyone thinks, oh, they're self-aware, they're this. This woman interviews, it's unbelievable. And it's all about grit. It's about staying in, going, never quitting, getting back up, that whole thing. A friend of mine turned it on to me. He texted me, he goes, this is about you. This book is about you. So I read it, I'm like, yeah, and you take a little score, you can score yourself on the grit scale. But I think it's really important for people, especially entrepreneurs, because we're workers, right? We get it done. We want to do it. And it's important it's like an encouraging book. You see these great people and what it took for them to get great. Because you know how people just see the great part? Every overnight success only took 10 years. So it's that, but it's that times 10. So that's a really excellent book. I really love that book. I'd say put that on there for sure. Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. Another outstanding business book, one of the best. I would get that for sure. I have required reading. I have a whole list of required reading for my coaches that we have to go. They have about 15 books they have to read at a minimum. But there's a lot. There's a lot. But those couple are really good. Those are really, really good.
Awesome. So is there some kind of a final takeaway you would like to add? If we missed something very important you would like to mention?
We won't go into it just at the end here, but I wanted to touch a little bit on exit strategy. People always ask about that. And again, it's another counterintuitive thing that especially people starting a business, they ask what's one of the first things they need to do. I go, well, start with an exit strategy. Well, I just haven't, I know, but if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there? An exit strategy is, okay, in 10 years, I want to build this business so I can sell it for X amount of money at this time point so I can do what, right? Once you know that, again, I'm giving you the high view. Once you know your exit, you work backwards, right? You reverse engineer. So what does it take me to get to that? Now, when I make decisions in my business, they're all about feeding the exit strategy. Okay, so if there's an opportunity, someone's saying, hey, you can make some money doing this, I have to look at them and go, well, that's going to really take me off my course to get to my exit. So I got to say no. Now, if it feeds your exit, gets you closer, you do it. Okay, that's the big nutshell of what exit strategy is, but it's really important to understand that. Whatever you want to call it, you got to start with the end in mind.
Mm.
Like that'll change your whole perception on what you're doing. Because otherwise you're just driving for next week. You're trying to make payroll next week. That's that 2-year cycle. You get stuck in that 2-year cycle we talked about. So plan that exit, plan the end in detail, and then work your way backwards, and it'll be a game changer for your
Yeah.
business.
So people need to understand having an exit strategy does not mean you actually sell your business if you don't want to, but it's a way for you to, for example, have a backward thinking for things and working backwards into things, and so you can have this type of place or business or company that you have customers that want to be part of it or said I bought from this company, and at the same time you want to have employees that are as much as possible ingrained in the culture of the business and are loyal employees and driving the company forward without being micromanaged. This is very
Right.
important.
And the other thing on that too, if you build it towards the exit strategy, means you're going to sell it. You're going to build a company of high value. So even if you don't sell it, it's worth a lot of money. It runs by itself. It doesn't need you. So, because when you sell, you want someone to come in, hey, I want to buy your company. Okay. And this is how I want the transaction to go. Here's $75 million. Okay, thank you. Shake their hand. I go out the door. They come in. No one knows it got sold. When you build your business like that, and that can happen, that's the transaction I want. Right? And then they can make their change down the road, but no one's going to buy your business if they have to come in and fix everything. It's worth nothing. You'll get pennies on the dollar. So if you build it with the exit strategy in mind, even if you don't sell, but we've seen economy, you've been around enough like me, economies go up and down, and sometimes you may be forced to sell. Well, if you've built it to sell with the exit strategy, even in the low point, you're going to maximize your dollars for that period instead of losing basically everything. I've been there.
Yeah,
Okay, so
definitely. Like we talked about, also the employees are very important part of it. So they will have the security that if the company transition to a different ownership, that everything will be fine, will be okay, everything will go smoothly. So that's very important. Again, I guess in this point also. So, Richard, where can people learn more about you and see what you do?
you can go to sharpenthespear.com. That's my website. Tons of info on there. Great stuff. I even have an online startup course. If you're looking to start a business, I have a 16-week online course on there. Take a look at that. It says startups in the navigation bar. Take a look at that. Because if you're new and you have an idea, okay, 97% of all businesses fail in the first 5 years. Don't be that person. This will help you. If you do my course, it'll exponentially increases your chances for success, but it's work. And that's why you succeed, because it's actually work. Ideas, service is great. It's all about the work.
Definitely, it's all about the actions. We have to limit our plans, and certain time we have to execute. If we don't execute, we are not going to know if it's going to work or not. So
Right.
that's very important. Action is the mother of all success, I guess. So that's very important. Well, thank you very much, Richard, for being with me on this episode of the podcast. Really insightful and great insights into how businesses should think from an exit strategy to build their business. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Hussein, for having me on. I appreciate it.